together. And also using the chat function. So just to get the chat box going a little bit, if you would maybe just take a moment and either type in a word or a phrase of something that comes to mind that makes you feel happy or that gives you what I like to refer to as a half smile. So if I think about something, like maybe I think of a favorite place that I've gone on vacation and it kind of makes me half smile, just makes me a little happy, or you think of a puppy or you think of a baby, just go ahead and throw some of those words or phrases out there in the chat box. It's fun to see what other people put on there and say and share with one another. And I can't see the chat box, so maybe Caitlin, could you share a couple things that have been thrown in there?
Sure. So we got music. Nice. Always a great mood booster. I put sunflowers, always make me really happy. We have mountain hikes, sunshine. It's bringing a smile to my face just talking about these things.
Yeah, you know, and sometimes we're going through such stressful times right now, and obviously our topic tonight is how to navigate change. But, you know, sometimes when you're just really feeling down and out and depressed and gloomy and doomy, and, you know, just think about that thing that causes you to have that half smile and picture that field of sunflowers or that beach or a person sometimes, or, you know, for me, it's a big cup of really good, strong coffee. That definitely gives me a half smile. But it just gives your brain a little bit of a break. So thank you for doing that. The other thing you might want to do if you don't have a pen and paper handy, we are going to be doing a couple of activities today that I'm going to ask you to use a pen and a paper. So if you want to go ahead and grab those as we get started here, that would be helpful as well. So our topic tonight is navigating change. Again, my name is Brenda from Henry Ford Enhanced EAP, and we're going to jump right in here. If it will let me advance. Why is it not letting me advance?
I'm having issues sending chats as well, so there might be something going on with Teams.
Okay. So Caitlin and I were practicing right before you came on board, and I was advancing just fine. So.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So just wanted to start out with a quote. The only thing constant in the world change. That's why today I take life as it comes. And, you know, we've been talking about change for a long time now, but we certainly, none of us have experienced the amount of change that have experienced this year during this pandemic. So I want to start with a first activity. If you have that piece of the paper written down, and you could go ahead and write A through Z on the side if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. But this activity is called the A to Z activity. And what I'd like you to do, and I'm just going to give you a minute, maybe a minute and a half to do this, but when you think of the changes that have happened to you in the last 6 or 7 months, since March, let's say since the 1st of March, and you think of a word that starts with the letter A, just jot it down on that piece of paper. And then a word that starts with the letter B and C and D, and you can jump around. You don't have to go into any particular order. But again, when you think of the change that you've been dealing with in the last few months, going through the alphabet, just jot down some words. I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, about 15 more seconds. All right, let's spend a couple minutes just talking about some things that came to mind. What are some of the words you wrote down on your piece of paper or thought of? Remember to unmute yourself if you're talking, or you can throw it in the chat box.
I would say I'm just gonna pick a few, but adaptability, change, down, in feeling down, exhausted. But those are a few that I wrote down.
Thank you. Yeah. Those are all words that I've definitely have heard as of lately, especially exhausted. You hear that one a lot. And adaptability. I think for at first we didn't know if we were going to be able to adapt. And for most people, we have found a way to, navigate within the new norm, and we are adapting. There's some other words.
Brenda, we also have in the chat, Karen said L for less physical activity.
Okay.
And then Sherry said T for tired and B for blessed.
Okay. Excellent. So some words that bring some happy thoughts and some words that bring some not so happy thoughts. Okay. One other person want to share a couple of words? All right, well, we'll maybe visit this activity a little bit more as we go through the rest of the presentation. So during this training, we are just a couple of objectives here. We're going to understand the phases of change, and we'll go through, there's 4 of them, and we're going to go through each of those independently. We're going to explore ideas to build a personal plan of action and embrace the opportunities that change presents, and that's the activity, one of the activities that we're going to commit to towards the end. And we're going to rediscover the importance of managing our own personal stress. And that one's really important. I don't think there's anyone on the call today that can say that they don't have any stress. We all have some stress right now. So we'll talk about how we can manage that a little bit more productively. So our first activity, if I could ask each of you to do, and I'll do it along with you, is just to cross your arms. If you could just take and go ahead and cross your arms in a way that's comfortable for you. For some of you, it might be right over left. Others, it might be left over right. Get yourself in a comfortable spot. Now take and do the opposite with your arms. Your right arm's on the top, put that one on the bottom and do the opposite with your arms. How does that feel? There's some words. How does that feel for you?
It actually makes you feel more uncomfortable.
Yeah. At first it was really comfortable, Janet, thank you. And then it wasn't comfortable anymore. Right. What are some other words that come to mind? Awkward is usually one. It feels awkward. It doesn't feel right. It's not what you're used to. You're used to crushing your arms this way, and now I've asked you to crush your. I can't even hardly do it. It just feels very uncomfortable. It's just not what we're used to. And with all that's going on right now in our world, that's a feeling that we're having every day, all day long, at times. So let's think about that as we go through here. So success at work and home. Each and every day presents an opportunity for a couple of different things. One is to express gratitude. And, it is. We started out today talking about babies and puppies and sunflowers and the things that make us happy and give us that half smile. And what are those things that we have in our life that we feel grateful for? I know that, for some, they say, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful. I don't have little ones at home. I have 2 teenagers. I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. So I feel grateful that they at least are solid enough in their schooling that they can kind of, navigate this new norm in school on their own. I don't have to provide a lot of supervision for them. They're both really good students and they can kind of do it on their own. So I feel very grateful for that. I also express gratitude and have gratitude for the fact that although, COVID has impacted me in many different ways, I myself personally have not lost any loved ones to COVID. And I have people that I know that have lost lots of people, 6, 7, 8 people that they know very closely. So when we think about that, just think about the things that we are grateful for, the things that we have versus the things that we don't have. You've all heard the expression, do you see the glass half empty or half full? And for some of us, we look and we see the glass half empty. So if you could shift that and say, yes, my glass might be half empty, but it's also half full. And what is it full of? It's also really helpful for us to demonstrate compassion. And when we show compassion for either people that are in our lives or compassion for the work that we do, just compassion in general, it fills us up on the inside. So although we're doing it for others, we're also doing it for ourselves. And it gives us that feel-good feeling on the inside. It kind of fills our bucket. We need to do that. We need to fill our bucket all day long, every day, with the things that keep us going and keep us energized. Another one is be kind, practice kindness, maybe paying it forward if you have an opportunity to do so, doing little things in life that make a difference. It could be something simple. It could be, stopping and you're going to, visit a friend and you stop and you pick up a cup of coffee for them, or you decide to write a letter and drop it in the mailbox because gosh knows most of the mail we get these days is just junk mail and bills. When's the last time you got a card in the mail? So just doing little things like that to be kind to other people, especially people that are really in need. Maybe it's running an errand for a neighbor that can't get out of the home. Or I know especially early on during all of this, I had some neighbors that were afraid to leave the home. So running and doing errands for them, going and doing some grocery shopping for them and taking it to their home. All of those things can help you with just filling yourself with energy, and that can help you be more productive at work and in our work. So the work might not even be the work that you do at DTE when you go to work every day, whether going to work is getting in your car and driving, or going to your office in your home, or on your laptop at home, because I know probably many of you on this call tonight are working remotely. But also the work that we do in other ways. So it could be the work that you do as a parent, or the work that you do within your church or within your school or within your community. So it's work in all ways. And all of those things give us a chance to learn and to grow and to change. And do we make mistakes? Absolutely, we make mistakes. But hopefully we can learn from those mistakes and make different choices down the road. So I put an equation up here, and maybe some of you have seen this before, but E plus R equals O. Has anybody seen that before, or have any ideas what the E and the R and the O might stand for? Janet does. I see Janet wanting to talk.
I think E is energy, but the R, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Good guess. So E actually stands for event. So event plus R stands for either reaction or response, and O stands for outcome. So when we think about things that are happening in our lives, we have little control and sometimes no control over the events that are happening in our lives. And gosh knows, we've got a lot of events that are happening in our world right now. And we have sometimes very little control over that. But we do have control in how we respond or we react to that, and that affects our outcome. So let me give you an example. I mentioned that I have 2 children, and they're kind of growing out of this as they've gotten older, but when they were little, they responded to things very, very differently. My son, his name is Carson, and he's very laid back and easygoing and just kind of goes with the flow. My daughter, Acadia, is a little bit different. She's a little bit more reactive, a little bit more intense. Things impact her more in, at a greater level than they do him. So say we had something really fun planned. I had been telling them for a month that on Saturday we were going to go to the zoo. We're going to go to the zoo. We're going to go to the zoo. We're going to have so much fun. They've never been to the zoo before. They can't wait to see the animals. They're so looking forward to it. We've been planning it for a month, and then we wake up Saturday morning and it's just thunderstorming, lightning, pouring down rain. There's no way we're going to be able to go to the zoo. My son would look out the window and say, "Oh man, Mom, I was so looking forward to going to the zoo. What a bummer. We can't go to the zoo today, but I know what we can do. Why don't we go to the movies? Or why don't we bake cookies? Or why don't we play a game?" Obviously, these are pre-COVID days. But he would just, he'd be bummed, he'd be disappointed, but he wouldn't let it stick with him. My daughter, on the other hand, would look out the window and just be angry. "I can't believe it's raining. All I wanted to do was go to the zoo today. Why did it have to rain today? This is terrible. This is horrible. My life is bad. I never get to have any fun." And she would be angry for half an hour. So same event, we planned on going to the zoo and we couldn't because it was raining. Two totally different responses and reactions, and then two totally different outcomes. So for my daughter responding and reacting that way, her blood pressure's rising, her heart rate's increasing, she's crying, her tummy starts to hurt, she might end up with a headache, and my son's just on to the next thing. So think about that sometimes when you're faced with something that's happening in your life and you have little or no control over it. Think about what you can control versus what you can't control. A little equation that you can keep in your pocket at all times. So some basic mistakes that we want to avoid, and I'm assuming all of you are on this training and you can see the slides. Hopefully you can, and you're not just listening, but I'm going to read through them. So basic mistakes to avoid. The first one is to aim for a low stress work setting. Now, wouldn't that be nice if we just could have a very low stress work setting? And the reality is for most of us, that's really probably just not the reality. And when we think about stress in general, sometimes stress gets a really bad rap, and really we need to have some amount of stress in our lives. If I'm driving my car down the road and I'm driving the speed limit and humming along, and all of a sudden somebody cuts in front of me in traffic, and I take my foot off the gas and I jam on the brake and stop myself and avoid an accident, that's a stress reaction. There was a stressor that I was exposed to, and I reacted to that. And because I reacted the way that I did, I kept myself safe and avoided something bad from happening. So we want to have some stress in our lives. It helps us set goals. It helps us keep us going. It helps us accomplish things. So stress in and of itself isn't bad. What's bad is the unmanaged stress, the stress that we don't take care of that starts to cause long-term complications such as health conditions and problems sleeping and medical issues and all kinds of things. So we want to we want to recognize that we need to have some amount of stress in our lives, and we also need to know that we can't expect someone else to lower our stress. If we wait around for someone else to fix our stress, that's probably not going to happen. We need to find ways to fix that stress ourselves. Another one to avoid is trying to control the uncontrollable. So we kind of just did that one with the E plus R equals O, right? If we try to control the rain or the traffic or the politics that are going on right now, or the pandemic, or so many things right now that we can't control, but we can control our responses or our reactions to that. Now, I mean, it's really easy for us to just say that, right? We're just a small group of people here tonight, and we're sitting comfortably, and we can say that's what we should do. But in reality, that's not always the easiest thing to do. Especially if we're allowing ourselves to react in some way. There's what happens in our brain when we're exposed to a stressful situation is, instead of our brain activity being in the front parts of our brain right now, so probably right now, if I were to put a scan on all of your brains, it would show that your brain activity is in the frontal lobe, and that's because you're not feeling frightened right now, you're not afraid, you're not super stressed out, so that's where your brain activity is. But if all of a sudden, boom, 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 you were to hear 3 gunshots, that brain activity would go straight from the front of your brain back to the brain stem. And then your body kicks into flight or fight or freeze. So you're going to do one of those 3 things. So when you find yourself in a stressful situation, if you can't help your brain get back to where it needs to be, it's going to be hard to control those R's. And what else is on here? Pick the wrong battles. You sometimes hear people say that. I want to choose my battles and I don't want to get myself into too much trouble. So kind of pick and choose what it is that you think is going to help you the most. So here's the 4 stages of change: denial, resistance, exploration, and commitment. And we have a slide for each of those. So we're going to go through each of those in a little bit more detail. So the first one is denial. So what you might feel. So each of these slides is going to talk about what you might feel if you're in the stage of change that's denial, and then what you can do to get yourself out of that stage and navigate and move through the cycle of change. So what you might feel is that the problems might seem larger than normal in this stage. So when we think about that E plus R equals O, if I could draw it on a board, I don't have a whiteboard with me right now, but if I were to draw, an E that's this size, we want the R to be the same size. And what ends up happening is sometimes we have a little event and we give it a huge response, like way over the top. So going back to my example of the stress comes and I take my foot off the gas and I slam on the brake, hopefully that's all I do. I just take my foot off and I slam on the brake, and then I take a couple of deep breaths and I say, thank you, thank you for reacting that way. Others might, lay their hand on the horn or start doing some gestures or saying some unkind words to other people and allowing themselves to get really worked up about that. Or they might even chase after the person, and that's where we start to see that road rage, and that could really get a person into trouble, especially these days, because we know what happens sometimes when that occurs. So you want to make sure that you're responding to things in an appropriate manner in regards to the situation that you're dealing with. What also might happen when you're in denial is you might feel that the change isn't happening at all. You might just resist the change, and you might say no. And some people say that. I'm sure you've heard people say that this pandemic isn't real and it's not really happening and the hospitals are just lying and people aren't really dying of COVID. And they might really believe that that's true, and they might believe that this really isn't happening. And that's a part of our body's way of protecting ourselves and denying. You also might go about your business as usual, as though you are unaware of the change. And people do that. They start to go through life in this autopilot, living in this bubble and not really being aware of the change that's going on around them. And that can really get a person into trouble. If you've got to change, maybe DTE changes a policy, and maybe you've worked there for 15 years and you know the policy as it is, and then all of a sudden the policy changes. And you don't really like that policy and you don't want that policy to change. So you start to deny that policy is changing. You might go about your business functioning in the way the old policy was and find yourself, with some corrective action because you're no longer following the policy because you've denied it and you've resisted the change. And then the last one is downplaying your reaction or your feelings. So sometimes we have a reaction to that and we stuff it. We say, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. There's a couple of words in our vocabulary that I wish people wouldn't use at all. And one of them is should. When you start shoulding yourself and telling yourself or telling another person what they should do or what they shouldn't do, it can be judgmental and it can be blameful. So instead of saying to myself, like maybe I was really hungry and I stopped and got a piece of pizza, or I got a pizza and I went home and I ate 6 pieces and now my belly really hurt. I might start beating myself up and say, Brenda, you shouldn't have had 6 pieces of pizza. And that's really, you're beating yourself up. Instead say, I wish I wouldn't have had 6 pizzas. I wish I would have had 3 pieces of pizza and a salad. It's a little change of word, but it can make a big difference in how we respond and react to that. So what you can do instead is you can seek information if you're unsure about something. Is COVID really real? Is this policy really changed? Do what you need to do to get the information that you need so that you have the answers and you have the facts and you know what they are. Focus on what's constant in your life. Again, what you have control over. Ask questions. Ask questions when possible, whether it's your leader or it's somebody in your family or a friend, or there's different ways of sometimes Google might be able to give you some answers, but you have to be careful what you Google and what kind of answers you get on the internet, because they're not always as true as we all know. And then give yourself time for the change to sink in. Any thoughts on any of those before we go to the next one? All right. So the next one is resistance. So what you might be experiencing is feelings of resentment, increased complaining. You might find yourself like complaining and being that maybe you are a glass half full person and you've always been pretty positive, but now you're finding yourself being more negative and complaining about things and looking at things differently. Or you might find yourself overreacting to things, doubting things, feeling fearful. Feeling uncertain. My gosh, I'm sure somebody, when we did the A to Z activity, I have to believe somebody wrote down the word uncertain. These are some uncertain times, and there's so many questions right now that we are feeling that, and that's part of our resistance and anger. And anger can happen in any of these stages. It's okay to be angry. There's a lot to be angry about right now. But what you want to do is you really just want to listen. If you're hearing that or you're feeling that, listen to what's going on around you. Try to make sure that you're not judging. Talk to people that you really can trust that can maybe validate your feelings and be there for you in friendship, and kind of know who you can go to too. I think it's really important to have different types of friends and different people that you can go to for different reasons. I have a couple of different friends. I have a friend that lives here in Michigan that I go to for advice when I really want some good sound advice, and I know she's gonna be really honest with me. And if she doesn't agree with me, she's gonna tell me that. And then I have another friend that lives out of state, and most likely she's just gonna agree with me and tell me what it is that I want to hear. So say I have a argument with my husband, and I think he's just been the biggest jerk. Whatever he did, he was just a real jerk, and I'm really angry at him. And I just want to vent about it. If I call my friend that lives out of state, she's going to validate me. She's going to say, oh, you're right. He is a jerk, and he's always a jerk. And, you're absolutely right, Brenda. You did nothing wrong. If I call my friend that lives here and I tell her what happened, she might say, she'll listen and she'll validate my feelings. But then she's going to say, gosh, Brenda, I'm wondering if your husband might have felt that, and she's going to help me see it in a different way. And I might not like that at first. I might be a little irritated with her, but I know kind of who to go to for those different kinds of things, and that helps me. Empathy is on the list, being able to empathize with people, establishing very clear expectations, especially about your own roles, taking good care of yourself. Gosh knows, at these times more than ever, it's so important to take care of ourselves, and whether that's doing something big like trying to go on a vacation. And it's not real easy to go on vacations right now, but even if it's a mini vacation, and that mini vacation might just be, getting your house to yourself for a day and saying to your family, get out of here. I need the house to myself for the day, and listening to some music and taking a hot bath or going for a massage or going for a walk. But taking care of yourself in any way that you can is so important. Filling that bucket, re-energizing. Consider using the EAP. I mean, DTE offers the Employee Assistance Program to all of you and your family members and all those living in your household. It's completely free to you. It's completely confidential. If you're, really struggling and you think it would be helpful to talk to someone, give our office a call and schedule an appointment. We're doing sessions right now virtually, as is the rest of the world. But we can get you an appointment. You can meet with one of our counselors. They're all of the counselors on our team have a master's degree in a different some mental health field, and they can help you and talk to you if you're feeling depressed or you're feeling anxious or you're struggling with anything, whether it's something going on at work or something going on at home. It's a benefit that's available for you. So use that. All right, quick question. And I wish these were all the same color. I couldn't find one that was all the same color, but when you look at that, how many squares do you see? Pretend they were all the same color.
16.
16, yes. How many?
17.
17.
We have another 16 in the chat.
Okay.
And another one, another 16 from Mary.
16. Anybody else see anything other than 16?
Oh, in the chat from Asil, she said it could be 22 if you look at it different.
Yeah, exactly. So the name of this activity is called 16 squares because when you first look at this activity, you see 16 squares. But if you look at it more closely, you look at it differently. If you put 4 of the squares together, that equals a square. If you put 9 of the squares, again, I can't show you because this is virtual, but if you put 9 of the squares together, that equals a square. The whole square itself is a square, which is probably where somebody got the 17 from. The 4 squares right in the middle is a square. So if you start looking at it differently, you can see that there's lots of squares in there. There's 20, 30 squares in there, depending on how you look at it. But the purpose of the activity is to demonstrate that sometimes when we look at something, we only see one way to do it, or we see the way that we're just most familiar with. One of my favorite sayings is to try different versus harder. How many of you have tried to do something over and over and over again, and you just keep trying harder and harder and harder and harder, and you just keep failing and failing? And it can be helpful to just try something totally different. If I have said to my kids, if my kid walks in the door and throws their backpack and their shoes right there by the side door, every day. They come home from school, they throw their backpack, they throw their shoes, and I say to them, pick up your backpacks, pick up your shoes, and they don't do it. And I just keep saying it over and over and over every day, every day, every day. And I can say it 100 times, and they still don't do it. I could say it 101 times, it's not going to make a difference. But if I can say it differently, or we can come up with a different way of what to do with the backpack and the shoes, then we can, come up with different solutions. So when you're faced with a problem at work, or you're faced with a situation at home and you see 16 squares, stop and ask yourself, is there a different way of me looking at this? Can I come up with a different solution? And that can help you in the next phase. So the next phase or the next stage that we want to talk to in change is exploration. So once we can get through the denial and the resistance, and we can start to see that maybe there's a different way of doing this and dealing with this, then we can start to get into exploration. So you can see, what you can expect. You can acceptance of the fact that things are changing. So maybe at first, when this first hit us, we're like, oh, this just can't be, and there's no way that I'm going to have to, stay at home, and I can't go outside my door, and the restaurants are closed, and have to wear this mask and all these things. But now that you're experiencing it more, and it's becoming more real for you, you're starting to accept that this is here, this is real, it's here. We're living in the moment. You might start to have a sense of moving on or readiness. So it's like, okay, my son just said to me yesterday, he says, you know what, Mom? He said, wearing this mask isn't all that bad. And my kids are going to in-person school. Both of my kids are in-person school, and they were so resistant to wearing the mask. And he also works, so he wears the mask at school, and he also wears the mask at home. And he just said to me yesterday, he said, it doesn't bother me anymore, Mom. I'm used to wearing the mask now, and I don't feel like I can't breathe, and it doesn't make me feel as uncomfortable as it did before, because he has moved now into acceptance of this just as how it is. You also might find that you are ready now to do some increased risk taking, and of course you want to keep it safe, and you want to be reasonable in doing the things that you do. But this is the stage where you start to, instead of buckling down and living in isolation and living in your bubble, that you start to say, yes, I can do this, I can handle this change, and I can start to move forward. So on the other side, some of the things that you can do, participate in the problem solving, display positive actions, again, the glass half full. Make sure that you're validating your own priorities and checking that for yourself and others. And also assist your coworkers with adjusting to change. If you have those opportunities to do that, look for those opportunities, whether it's your coworkers or your family members or your friends, helping people do that as well. So what we hope that you can do as you move those stages is that you can get to the point where you can commit. So to get to the stage of commitment, what you can expect is to have feelings of hope. Yeah, I can commit to doing this. I can do this. I feel hopeful about this. I feel confident, motivated, and start to feeling trustful again. My direction is apparent. I can see now where it is that I want to go, and I feel aligned. I feel aligned with my work. I feel aligned with my family. I feel aligned with, just whatever it is that's going on in your world. It's an opportunity for you to really acknowledge accomplishments, whether it's your own accomplishments, because it's good for us to give ourselves our own pat on the back, but also acknowledging the accomplishments of others in your family, in your social network, and also at work. And then continue to look for ways to continue to develop talent and evaluate your change process. So what I'd like you to do on that piece of paper that I asked you to have is I want you to just take a moment here, and I'm going to read these because I don't know if everyone is seeing this, but the first thing says that one action step I'm going to commit that will help me manage change and stress successfully is, and I want to give you just 30 seconds to write something down on a piece of paper. One action step I'm going to commit to that will help me manage change and stress successfully is. The next one says to name 2 things that you are doing now, but you know that you need to do it more consistently that will help you manage your day-to-day stress. So it is something that you're doing that's helpful, but that if you did it more consistently, it would help you manage your stress. It could be something simple like walking. I know that I like to go for a walk and that makes me feel good, but I know that if I could walk for 10 minutes 3 times a day, I would feel really good. So what is it that you're doing that you know that you could do more of? The next one says to write down 3 blessings that you have in your life that help you see the glass half full. So that might go back to the beginning of those half smiles. Maybe it is your grandchildren that you were talking about, or what is it? What 3 blessings? Maybe it's your health, maybe it's your faith, whatever it is. What are 3 things that you have in your life that help you see your glass half full? And the last one is setting a goal. And one goal I'm going to set for myself that will improve my resiliency in dealing with stress and change is. So resiliency, I imagine most of you know the definition of resiliency, but having resiliency means that you have the ability to bounce back from adversity. So if you want to be a resilient person and say you fall and injure yourself, or you have something detrimental that happens, a loss of some sort in your life, and you want to bounce back and get back to being normal again, that's resiliency. So what is a goal that you have for yourself that will help you improve your resiliency in dealing with stress and change? And I'll give you 30 seconds to wrap those up. Is anyone brave enough to share, unmute themselves and share something that they wrote down? It helps when you share something out loud. It makes you put it out there and then hold yourself more accountable for it. So saying it out loud can maybe help you then take action on it. So who's brave enough to share something, any one of those? Okay,
Brenda,
did you want to share one?
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, while they're thinking, I can share one of mine.
Okay.
The 2 items that I'm doing, but could do more consistently, would be to take more me time, and then also to ask for support when I need it. I'm very bad at asking for help. I want to try to always do things just by myself.
Right.
So I think being able to be more comfortable with that would really help me.
And just recognizing, Caitlin, that that's true for you is helpful. If you know that that's kind of the person that you are, and you can recognize that, that can help you take different actions as well.
Right, exactly. And then we have in the chat, Mary said a goal of hers is to stay happy and believe in herself.
Okay.
And then Karen also posted she would like to go for more walks and talk to family and friends more often.
Okay. Yeah, and I think many of us have found different ways to talk to family and friends, because maybe you haven't been able to see your family, or even if you have been able to see your family, you haven't been able to hug your family. I know that's one of the things that I miss the most, is just being able to, to hug someone. Where we have so many things that we're used to doing that we can't do anymore. I'm used to getting up and going to the office every day, and I'm not going to the office every day. I'm going in once or twice, but I'm not going every day. I'm used to, my kids getting up and going to school, and they are doing that, but they're doing it in a different way. I'm used to seeing somebody and meeting them for the first time and shaking their hand and saying, "Hi, I'm Brenda," and shaking their hand, or somebody that I haven't seen in a while, giving them a great big hug. And we can't do those things any longer. And it feels awkward, and sometimes it feels rude. I know when you're walking down the street and, somebody's walking, and you step off the sidewalk and walk on the grass to avoid them, it can feel rude. It feels very unsocial and unfriendly. But it's the new world that we're in, and it's the way that we do things now. So, yeah. So if you didn't get a chance to finish this, I encourage you to go ahead and just finish it on your own. after this. So I'm going to ask you, this is another activity, and I know it says activity 2, and it's actually, I think, activity 3 or activity 4, because we changed things up a little bit. But what I'd like you to do with that pen and paper that you have, and I'm going to give you 1 minute to do this. I'm going to ask you to take your pen and your paper, and I want you to just write your name. Just sign your name 10 times on that piece of paper. Fifteen more seconds. And some of you might not get through all 10. That's okay. All right, and stop. Pretty easy, right? You're all used to signing your name, at least if you're over the age of 10. I don't think they teach cursive anymore, so doing this activity with little ones might not work. But what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to take your pen and put it in the opposite hand that you just used. And I'm going to give you another minute, and I'm going to ask you to write your name 10 times using your opposite hand. All right, 15 more seconds. All right, so when you look at those two, what do you see? What did you feel? What did you think? How was that for you?
Got through 9 on the first one, couldn't get through 3 on the next one.
I couldn't even get through 1 on the left hand.
Yeah, mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
Does look like a mirror image though, just backwards.
Yeah.
Looks like scribbles.
Like scribbles, right? So when we're used to doing something a certain way, and then we're forced to do it a different way, it feels very messy and awkward and uncomfortable, and it's a lot harder. I was able to sign my name 9 times, and then I barely got through 3. Somebody said I didn't even get 1 done. So what we're used to being able to do very easily and routinely, now we're being asked to do it a whole different way. I know, for us at work, the first thing I had to do is, I'm actually the manager of the employee assistance program. The first thing I had to do is I had to get my whole team of therapists working at home remotely. We have always offered virtual sessions to clients that want to come in for therapy, but we didn't do it from home. We did it from our offices. So the first thing I had to do was get everybody home. And oh my gosh, I mean, that was just odd. I mean, some of us had laptops, some of us didn't. Some had work phones, some didn't. We had to figure out how to get the phones transferred to somebody's house. I mean, just all that awkwardness. And then, and then things were changing. What we were told in the morning, do it this way. By the afternoon, we were told, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way. And I'm like, but I was just told to do it this way. And it was frustrating, and we were angry. And my brain was just like, how much more can I take, and how much more can I handle? It felt like writing my hand, using my left hand versus my right hand every single solitary day. And I'm sure many of you felt that way. Hopefully you still don't feel that way. Hopefully you've been able to settle into a new norm, whatever that is for you. For some people, we went home and now they've come back. For many people, they were sent home and they've never come back. So there's just all different kinds of things that are happening. But just like writing with the other hand, it's just different, and it takes practice. So practicing the new way of doing things can help us become more comfortable with it. So I'm being mindful of the time here. I know we have about 9 more minutes left, so I want to get through the 10 principles if we could. And obviously there's 10 of them. The first one is to be in the moment. And I know you all know the buzzword these days is mindfulness and practicing mindfulness and being in the moment, but there really truly is so much benefit to being in the moment. And, being in the moment, no matter what it is that you're doing, even if you only get a 10-minute lunch break because you're crazy, take that 10 minutes and truly sit and enjoy that lunch break. If you're sitting with your teenagers and they're sharing with you something that's going on in their lives, take your phone and set it down. Be in that moment. Be with your kids. Driving in a car, being in the moment and driving in that car, it keeps you safe. It keeps you focused. Even, for me, even sometimes in my own home, I find myself not in the moment and I'm thinking about a zillion different things and my brain's going. And sometimes I do silly things like I'll be walking down the stairs and I'll miss the last 2 stairs and I'll fall and stumble and hurt myself. So, just really being mindful of everything that you're doing and truly just trying to be and let your body rest. Being authentic and humanistic, volunteering discretionary effort, meaning if there's something that's going on that maybe you're not agreeing with, instead of just being vocal about what it is, maybe be a little sensitive to what you're sharing. Not everybody shares. I think especially now because everything's become so political that people are a little bit more forthcoming with sharing their political views without asking the other person how they feel. And it can be offensive and you could really hurt somebody's feelings and you could really make somebody feel, standoffish if you just start talking about who you're voting for or what you believe in or, so, really just trying to just be sensitive to the fact that other people have different opinions and different views. I like be curious versus judgmental. One of the things that I try to really practice is seek to understand. If something happens, like say, for example, somebody might call me as the manager of the department and say, you know what, Brenda, I've called and I've left 5 messages for that Tamika person that answers your phone and she hasn't called me back. I could instantly judge and think, oh, Tamika's not doing her job. Or I can say, you know what, I'm curious about that. I want to seek to understand. I want to call Tamika and say, Tamika, somebody told me that they called 5 times and you haven't called them back. Did you recognize this name or does this sound familiar? And 9 times out of 10, she's going to say, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so glad that you told me that because they have called 5 times, but not once have they left their phone number. I haven't been able to call them back. So, really seeking to understand and asking questions and being curious. Also looking in the mirror first and, asking yourself, how would I want someone to respond to me in this situation? Or am I being the best, true, authentic person that I can be? Having courageous conversations if something's happening and you really do need to have a conversation with somebody because they have either said something offensive or they've done something that isn't good for the team and you really have to have a conversation to be courageous about that and do it certainly in a respectful way and using your communication skills, but having those conversations is so important. And then the last one in here is to teach, coach, and to mentor. So if you have an opportunity to be a role model, here, look in the mirror first, be the change, embrace it, become manicured. One of the things that I don't know if I have one here or not, but yeah, I do. One of the things that I keep on my desk at my office is emery boards. I don't know if you can see this or not, but nail files that you use to manicure your nails. And one of the things I like to think of, if we have somebody in our life that we would identify as a difficult person or a challenging person, instead of resisting that, to say, you know what, maybe this person has been put in my life to help me become more polished and help me become more manicured. So how can I use this stressful situation to learn from it and to grow myself and to become a better person? So again, model the change, communicating what we can about the change, involving others in the change if we can. We're all in this together. And that's one thing with, what we're going, none of us have ever been through a pandemic before. This is the first time any of us have been in a pandemic. But one thing that we know is we're all in this together, whether you live here in Michigan or you live in, Germany or Africa, we're all going through this together. So how do we learn from one another? And of course, we've done that and we've watched how others have handled things and we've learned from things. And then creating supportive learning environment. So an example that they give here is, around the world it's recommended that we wear face masks. And certainly people have differences of opinions. Does it help? Does it not help? I shouldn't be forced to do it. You've heard it all. We don't have to go over it here. But according to the CDC, it's one of the best ways that we can do to help protect other people and protect ourselves. And the research shows that it does prevent. So that's just a change that maybe some of us are resistant to, but it's a change that if we truly look at it, it might be something that we can understand a little bit more. So just a couple of resources that I wanted to share for you. The first one is a resource guide for parents. This is a guide that we put together and gave to DTE, and hopefully it's been distributed or available for you on your intranet, but it's a really nice big booklet on for those of you who, I know it's a little bit, most kids are back in school now, it was something that was more helpful a couple of weeks ago, but it's still some really good information in there. I know for some parents that have little ones, maybe their children are virtual right now, but they're debating on whether or not they're going to send their kids to in-person school come January or come next semester. So that could still help you through that. And there's just some other resources that are there for you. So I want to end with one last activity, and this one you need your pen and paper for one more time. And this is the last activity, I promise. We've got 4 minutes here to do this last activity. So what I'd like you to do, very simple. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but on your piece of paper, I'd like you to draw a tree. Shoot, you know what? I'm sorry. It wasn't a tree that you were supposed to draw. It's a house. Scratch that. Can you draw a house for me, please? Oh, darn it. I messed up again. I'm sorry. It's not a house I need you to draw. I need you to draw a boat. Can you please draw a boat for me? And stop. How are some of you feeling right now? I'm actually sitting here with my mother tonight. My mother fell and broke her leg, so I've been staying with her, and she's here right now listening to me, and she just said that she feels like she doesn't know how to draw. How are you feeling towards me right now? I asked you to draw a tree, and then I changed it to a house, and then I changed it to a boat. Anybody frustrated with me right now? Sherry, it looks like you were going to say something.
Not frustrated, just, okay, is she gonna make her mind up?
Who is this crazy lady they invited to come speak to us tonight? She doesn't know what she's doing.
We had in the chat a couple of no's. No and nope, I did all three.
You did all three, okay. All right.
I will say, I felt rushed.
You felt rushed, okay. You felt rushed and it was changing. And, and if we think about, again, I hope things are a little bit more settled for most people, but if we think back to how we've been feeling over the last couple of months, we have been rushed and things have changed so much. And there's just so much information coming at us and coming in so many different ways. And we don't know what to do. Are we supposed to draw a tree? Are we supposed to draw a boat? Are we supposed to draw a house? Are we supposed to stand 6 feet away? Are we supposed to stand 12 feet away? Are we supposed to wear a mask or not wear a mask? Are we supposed to go to restaurants or not go to restaurants? Are we supposed to leave our stuff sitting outside for 24 hours or 72 hours? Are we supposed to, there's so many things that we just are uncertain about and don't know. But yeah, so hopefully some of those feelings are starting to get a little bit better. So I want to leave you with this final quote, and it's about attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. You are in charge of your attitudes. And you can see that that's a quote by Charles Swindoll. And I think it's one that kind of goes back to that E plus R equals O. So things do happen to us. and again, we have no control over that, but we can control how we respond and we react to that. So as we navigate through the changes that are still yet to come, I hope that you can use some of these tools. And I know we just have 2 minutes left. If there's any closing thoughts or anything that anyone wants to share for the good of the group, feel free to do so.
Thank you, Brenda. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us. That was wonderful. And I know I certainly learned some new strategies, for navigating change on a day-to-day basis, as well as the big changes that we might encounter. And I do want to let everybody know that those documents you were talking about, I did drop into the chat, so they're available for everybody to have as a reference, as well as your slides from today and a little bit of a EAP overview. I don't know if there were any last closing questions for Brenda. You can feel free to stay on a little bit longer, but I also am going to be dropping a link to a feedback survey for today's EAP workshop session. And this just allows you the opportunity to tell us how you think it went, and also to give you the opportunity to suggest future topics for these EAP workshops. They are a monthly thing now, at least until January. We have full commitment for them, and hoping that we can continue with them, since we all know, mental health is such an important aspect of our holistic well-being. So thank you again, Brenda.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm so glad to know that you're doing the feedback forms, because obviously this is new for us too. We're not used to presenting this way. We're used to being in a room with you, and we can see your body language, and we can interact in a different way. So, as we learn how to navigate and learn how to do things different, we are definitely open to feedback. So I appreciate that. Looks like Sherry wanted to say something, Caitlin. Sherry, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. It was blinking like you were trying to talk. Thank you for having me tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Okay, well, I hope that everybody has a great rest of their week, and a lovely evening, and just thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get outside and go for a walk if you can. Get some fresh air. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.